with his little mouth, though. He'll just, you know,
Hmm.
push it.
Try to push it off the counter.
We're back up. Are we back up? I think we're back up. Yes. Hopefully it's still good. I don't know if the live stream will come back. It will not. Okay. I'm going to have to go back to him and change that real quickly, but hopefully it's back. It's saying that it's not connected, but this may be a YouTube doesn't get the access to it maybe thing, but we'll see. Yes, so let's continue going where we were before. Let's start from the beginning. We had a little bit of a disturbance there. If it goes down again, I'm probably gonna not have the YouTube up there. Sorry for those of you on YouTube, but just because this is this is the second time it's gone down, so
yeah.
But change this. Okay, so Red Monster, your thoughts on the current party system and the org system as it stands?
Yeah, as I was saying, the org system, it's competing with tools like Discord and Guilded that have really great collaboration spaces, and I think Spectrum kind of lags behind that. There's the talk of like org 2.0, bringing in more features and things. Those are all like they've been talked about for ages, and it's just, the big question is when. And they do have to compete against systems like Discord and Guilded that a lot of orgs are using primarily to coordinate themselves. I myself, like, we have a weekly group mining session with the org, and we're using both like our Discord server. We have a dedicated tool that we use for our mining and refining, scouting and such. But then also we're using one of the in-game features to create a custom channel. So like a general channel or a party chat, you can go and create a custom one and invite people to that. And we just name it after our org. But you can add people in there. It acts like a party chat that persists across sessions. So it wipes out every patch, but you can go get the same group of people in if you're an org, or just have a group of friends that always end up doing the same thing. You can send party invites from there once you get a party started. And it does pretty well.
I've heard about that one before. I think we've used that in the past, but I didn't know if
which one, Guilded?
No, so there's like a chat you can start in game where you can set up a chat.
Oh yeah,
and then it'll persist throughout sessions. That chat will always be there as long as you add people.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So,
so that's my experience with it, at least.
Okay, Newerfire, your thoughts on the current party system and the current organization system as it stands in game?
So, my story started like 2017. I went and visited with Benoit, and this is right around Faceware, and everyone was all hot and horny to get Orgs 2.0 going and all this other stuff. And yeah, we got Faceware, and then the camera didn't release, and then we're still waiting for Org stuff. And I'm not like trying to sound negative, but it's an MMO, and everyone's already said it on the panel. We need it more now than, especially now, if they're going to go to 1,000-player servers, and this, we're on the cusp of getting large parties together, then we need all of the back end for party. And I know that's obvious. That's why we're talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we need stuff like org inter economy, where I can give money to someone for stuff. We need to be able to have org pools of money so that the org itself can have things that it wants to achieve and have the ability to do it on behalf of the players that are there. Motor pool, I have ships, Andy has ships, and just to be able to throw them in a motor pool and give people access to it. It's all very simple seeming stuff, but we already know that with Star Citizen, it's not simple, and it's not like I'm saying, oh, just do it, But having the ability to open up Spectrum and just see where everyone is on the ARC map. Remember that ARC map from 2015? It's like the thing. Again, these are all things that you'd take for granted in most other games, and I know it's still alpha, all that, but we need to light a fire on this, especially if people are polishing Squadron 42 and being shuffled somewhere else. This is now's the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah. I think we'll kind of talk about more into like why this is super important here in a moment. But my experience with the org system is that, or the party system, it works kind of. It has a lot of problems, but it definitely it's always felt like a placeholder. It's always felt like they wanted to get this in so that people could have parties, but it's never been something that they are super like detailed with.
If I might, if anyone remembers playing before the current version of it, wow, that was paradigm shift for playability. That was really, really good. But again, not to sound like I'm not appreciative, we need more. We need that fire.
The UI update was great. Like the UI update they've made for this friend system, which wasn't that far long ago. It was only a couple of years ago, I think. Probably like 2023 or 2022. It wasn't last year. It was definitely like 2022 or 2021, but it was in the COVID era. But that was a huge update. That was great, but that was more of a UX or a UI thing. It was a user interface thing, not really a like the problem with the current system is that you still have the labels disappear. There's still too much clutter at times. It's still unreliable because like the only way you can add a friend if they're not in your session that's reliable to add a friend is to get out of the session, add them in the UI, the new UI they have in the front end, which works great, and then like invite them afterwards. So unless they're in your game right there, you can't either add them as a friend or invite them to a party. So that can be bad, and it's also still very clunky. There's like the org or like kind of party chat is still kind of not really there. There definitely needs to be more improvements there. And then the org system is it's a website feature. And I'm a lore guy. I like the lore. I do lore videos, but I'm one of those, I understand the kind of opinion, and I kind of share this opinion, which is if it's on the website, it's not the game. And an org system on the website is great, but it's not the game. I want the org system in game so I can actually use it for game purposes. And there's so many other things that are out there. And I think that's the kind of the problem right now is that it feels very, we'll deal with it at some point kind of situation. Like it's not a priority for them right now, which
I feel like it might be pretty soon. And I kind of go into that a little bit.
We're going to get into that because the thing is, the reality is that, why would this be important? Why is the org system and why is the a party system? Why would these be important for CIG to invest time and effort in now? And I'll start with you on this one, Noob to answer that question.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Why would it be important to have the party system and the organization system in now? Why should CIG invest time and effort into it?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Again, the whole point of the game is to get people together and play, right? Like so. Anytime you make that easier, the game is already becoming work, and that's fine. That's what it's supposed to be. It's a simulator. So anything that you can do to allow people to come together sooner, better, with prepared, ready to go, so that they're not off moving ships and doing all this other stuff. Any planning tools so that I know exactly what time I have to be where with what. These are critical, and it sounds obvious. And this is kind of why, again, the conversation is coming up now because we're getting to the point where many people are going to want to start to play again. As soon as that server meshing 1,000-person thing comes on, I know there are people that have been asking me, it's like they haven't played in like 7 years because the last time they played it was just Stanton by itself, like Port Olisar. And they're like, is it time? And I'm like, that depends. Is it time for you? Probably not, but it's time. You should play. But it's going to become where I'm going to start to recommend that now is the time to those people. So if they come here and there's nothing for org management and stuff like that, or we're using like Google Sheets and, TeamSpeak, then that's, dumb. Sorry, guys, but
it's fine.
It needs to get addressed.
Red Monster.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We're looking at 1,000-player servers. There are very few orgs that can boast that number of players, and we're gonna have big opportunities to go through with large scale group events. And I think we need those collaboration tools so that not only can some of those experienced players, but even like the newer players that don't know what they're doing, they don't have to come in and fight with the logistical challenges of just rendezvousing with their group. Get them in with, a dedicated org type chat, get the approvals in there, party like org applications just being on the website. There's no notifications or anything, right? It's something people have to actively manage, and that's somewhat limited. Um, I think as we get into I do think we're kind of in the final stages of, kind of the MMO development. We're talking about Squadron 42 coming out and the interest that's going to drive. You're going to get a lot of people in here that want to have a polished organization experience to start to pair that with Squadron 42, right? Come over and try the persistent universe. But those people are going to be turned off by the game that exists if there are not easy collaboration tools that they don't have to go outside for, because there's some people who just swear against using Discord ever, right? Swear against using any other application. If it's not in the game, they're not going to be able to use it. So it's kind of catering to maybe a minority there, but also things need to be accessible within the game. I shouldn't have to alt tab away in order to manage those types of things.
Okay. Andy, your question, same with you. Why should this be a priority for CIG, both org tools and better party tools?
Yeah. I think honestly, these two guys kind of hit the nail on the head. Really, the way I look at it, there's kind of three aspects to this whole thing. From the top perspective, the broader perspective, it's clearly just a smart idea to have a way for groups of players to get together and play for a common cause. That's kind of why almost every MMO out there has some form of player organization or guild or something along those lines, some kind of tool to facilitate that group gameplay. There's also the practical reasons, and so this is sort of the aspect that I think might be pushing CIG to start at least looking at this sooner than later, because they're coming out with a lot of really good multi-crew ships and bases. They're going to have to contend with the notion of permissions. Not everybody is going to have want to be the sole controller of their ship. They want to be able to designate people who are capable of taking command of it, or running the engineering station, things like that. They've already discussed that and they've talked about it in the past, but I think now that they're finally getting engineering and multi-crew gameplay in there, it's like the next logical step. The third aspect of this, and to me, this is, I think, the most important part, and it should be for CIG too. I touched on it at the very beginning, the player-generated content aspect. I mentioned this before, and I'm just going to kind of expand on it a little bit now. Again, every MMO has to have a basic mission system, because that's what gives people the introduction to the game, lets solo players kind of test their feet in the water and see how the universe looks and how it works. But that is typically finite. And at some point, people, if they really do enjoy the game and they want to stay in it longer, they look for something that's going to help them connect and reach out and participate. Instead of being this person sitting on the sidelines of the universe, they want to get engaged and kind of play with everybody else. And that's what the guild system is all about. The mission systems are good, but those require labor and effort from the studio to put them together. And again, they're limited, they're finite. They can keep creating missions, but that's a labor intensive aspect. If you facilitate player generated content with the right tools, expose the right features in the game to see, for example, what org is somebody in when you scan them. Have a base that you can fly a flag over that has a base, an org's identifier or something along those lines. You start to build this tribalism in the game, so that you create this conflict that is a driving force behind a lot of the activity in a lot of MMOs. And even as a solo player, you don't have to engage with that if you don't want to. If you want to kind of still stay on the sidelines and do your own thing, you're still more than welcome to. But again, I'll go on for hours about this, but there's plenty of other MMOs to kind of draw from to see. And Eve is the one that first comes to mind when you have such a really good, ingrained, rooted, well-developed foundation for player orgs in the game. That's why Eve is still around. That player-generated content has been the stuff of media legend. There have been real-world articles written about the efforts and money spent in some of the wars in EVE Online, and there's a reason for it. It's mostly because they have that player generated content that evolves from player organizations?
I will answer this question by giving my own an analogy. I was an early adopter of WoW, and I played. Like, it was only a couple months after it first released, and I remember playing it and enjoying it. But once I reached level like 25 to 30 in original vanilla WoW, I stopped playing. And the reason why was because I never joined a guild. I never joined another group. I didn't have any friends who played. It was just some people said, "Hey, you should try this out." So I said, "Oh, why not? I'll try it." And I just dropped out. And from everyone I've talked to who has really good WoW experiences or good MMO experiences in general, it's because they had either friends or like a guild or a clan that they played with all the time. And that was their experience, and their enjoyment was not just playing with friends, or not just playing the game in groups, but playing with friends in the group. Yeah. And that a lot of those groups ended up going off to beyond that game to multiple other games as well. So
that's where I've had most of the fun and most of the best memorable experiences when playing with guild members. My brother Vinny is 10 years older than I am, and he still plays WoW.
Yeah,
because of that, because of the guilds that kind of help keeping things moving along.
And like, I enjoy Star Citizen solo, but it's clear that CIG is also trying to make sure that Star Citizen is an MMO. They talk about it all the time in terms of their balancing, in terms of their mission design. They want to make an MMO, and they really are dedicated at Star Citizen becoming more of an MMO than it is now. And the problem is that every MMO starts with a system like a guild or a clan system.
Yeah.
And that just is not there right now.
I think CIG recognized how useful it was at the very beginning, because that's why they made it through Spectrum.
Yeah,
that was a way to get people engaged and grouped together before they could really have any real practical use of it. But now they got to deliver. That's kind of my view. You know, they're at that stage where they got to at least start thinking about it and have a plan for it.
Yeah,
maybe they do. Maybe they're going to show it to us in October.
But and that's my hope, because right now it's key that, like, now that 4.0 has been in some stretch of completion, it's clear that CIG wants to get it out before the end of the year. If whether that happens or not, it's completely superfluous, because the point is that CIG is moving beyond 4.0. They're talking about 1.0 and what's going to be coming. So if you're going to be talking about 1.0, this is one of those things where, because I think the important thing for people to kind of come to understand is that right now, getting from point A to point B, if you have a friend who's in Hurston and you're in Microtech, it's a couple of minutes. It's not that long of a travel. It's not really that expensive. At most, it's going to cost you a couple hundred UEC to do so. So you can just kind of hop in and hang out with your friends. But Pyro could be minutes or hours away, plus resource management. And then when you start adding Nyx and, Castra,
you're not even be able to navigate it by yourself.
Exactly. Like, you're once you start expanding the universe with the way CIG wants to expand, you're going to start running into a problem of just being able to reach people is going to be a logistical feat. And you still want to balance the idea of having being able to play with your friends with the space is big and travel should be important and logistical change should be important. And right now, based off of, because as Jared famously said, if we're talking about it, we're working on it. CHA ain't talking about this in any way, shape, or form. And so to me, that means they're not working on it. And I think that's not a good idea, because even just with Pyro being added, it's going to start becoming more and more clear that being able to just hang out with your friends in Star Citizen is going to become a labor. And that's part of what it's supposed to be, but there still needs to be the ability to just be able to find out where your friends are and meet up with them. And that's why this system needs to kind of come into them.
A case in point in that is Elite Dangerous. I got into that over 10 years ago because they were one of the first ones to support VR. And I had a blast with it. It was really cool, very immersive to be able to sit there in VR and play a space game like that. But one of the biggest problems I had with it was that there was no org features exposed in the game at all. So they had this big, huge universe. They even had the concept of like group goals and things like that. But they had no way to foster player interaction. They had no way to get people together to provide the tools so they could do that in the game. And it was like, to me, it was, if you ask me, I would bet that is probably one of the biggest reasons why Elite failed, because they did not have the forethought to plan ahead and have that there so that when the studio generated content was done and used up, they didn't have anything that could kind of grow on its own with player generated content. I really believe that's the case, because you look at Eve. Eve is less sophisticated. Okay. Eve is less graphically sophisticated than Elite Dangerous was. But again, because they've got this really intensive org structure, I think that is what's kept it fueled for so long.
Yeah, I would argue that Elite hasn't failed. I would say that Elite has not reached its potential for many reasons. But
and maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, but it definitely it's fallen by the wayside, and it you're right. I think that's a good way to put it. It hasn't reached its potential because it had so much to offer.
There's an argument that Elite is floundering a bit. And I always bring it up because there's a lot of people who still play Elite in my chat, and they always like to say, they play Elite and they enjoy it, and Elite has still got a big community. It's just, I think that that's definitely something that's holding Elite back is that, like, sort of the ability to, because you don't see it in the zeitgeist like you see even Eve in the zeitgeist still.
Yes, there's no broader purpose other than running around and doing mundane missions and things like that.
The grind. And basically, as soon as they announced the console support was going to be stopping, that's probably where people got the impression, like, oh, the game is dead. You know?
So what should CIG focus on in the near term? If we're saying that this is important and this should be done, what should CIG be focusing on to give this sort of support in the short term? And if you have examples of other games that do well on this, please let me know. And I'll start with you on that one there, Andy.
I've got two easy wins for this.
Okay.
First one is expose organizational information in the game, so that if I'm a player org and I see another ship that's a player in my player org, they get color coded a certain way or something along those lines, something to at least reflect that org ownership in the game. The other easy win is, while they're conceptualizing and engineering the functionality for permissions in a ship, I know they've mentioned it before, they've talked about it, they know it's something that they need to come out with. It should revolve around orgs, and I think that's a no-brainer for them. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. But so, they've mentioned in the past that I forget what his name is, one of the guys from Europe, but he mentioned specifically that they wanted to be able to give permissions to a screen so that when you logged into a monitor, you had access to, say, maybe just engineering and the weapons or something along those lines. If they're already thinking along that path, they'd be crazy to not be thinking to structure it in some way around orgs, player orgs, because that's like, it's already the root foundation of what they'd want to build it from. And what's good about that is they're easy wins because they already need it for the multiplayer gameplay. And with regard to showing player orgs in the game, I would think, unless I'm being a little bit too naive here, it's really just a matter of exposing a couple fields in the UI. So, like, if you do a scan, for example, they probably have to figure out a good way to work it into the gameplay so that it's realistic, But if you do a scan of a ship, it should show what org they're in, no brainer. Those are kind of easiest things to pull off.
I'm sure they have that information even in the game. I don't know, because I believe a lot of the social systems are linked already. So
I've never seen a single reference to org stuff in the game, though.
No,
and maybe I'm just blind on it.
But no, but the I believe Spectrum, the same servers that host Spectrum are the ones that host the VoIP system, for instance.
Yeah.
So I think Spectrum in some way, shape, or form is connected to the back end, the hybrid service. I could be wrong on that one.
Well, I know from a raw tools perspective, I know they were very specifically at one point talking about making it so that Spectrum from the web page was actually the same chat as in the game, so you could literally be in the web page and chat with somebody who's in the game. That would be cool. I don't, I'm certainly not the most active game player in the world, but I don't know if I've seen that before, where you could interact with the game servers from a web page. I think that would be a good way to tie in people who might not be present in the game, be able to reach out into the real world and potentially lure people in. Hey, we're at this base and we're getting attacked. Come join us, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Red Monster, same question for you. What would any suggestions you'd give to CIG? What should CIG be focusing on in the short term to improve?
I think in the short term, it starts with user permissions and access, right? Giving org members maybe different tiers of access depending on their rankings. Having shared resources, so having an org bank, that kind of hangar that's accessible, but defining at some point. Right now we have like five ranks that we can do on the official org site. Give us a little bit more granularity. Let us put in divisions and ranks within divisions, especially for the larger orgs that are going to need that. Make that an option at least. But then have it provided with a tiered trust system. So anybody in my org can go and contribute to the org bank, right? And I should be able to see a history of their interactions and stuff. Higher senior level members can go and approve requests for org funds. Anybody can go submit one, but it has to be approved. And then certain levels you can set a threshold, so somebody can't just go request 10 million credits if it's their first day in the org, right? But giving those types of tools, both for resource sharing, that could be in credits, that could be in inventories, that could be in ship access. And then, kind of defining those permissions within the org so that certain people can be qualified as laser operators or combat pilots. Giving those types of modifiers that could give them, say, okay, you're not allowed to take out one of the org moles unless you've already qualified as a laser operator, that type of thing. That would be, I think, long term, but at least in the short term, giving permissions, getting some type of resource shared. And we've seen some of the org leaderboards for arena commander stuff, but I really think bringing more exposure to the org contributions in community events would be big. We get those that are generated by the marketing team after the fact, but kind of having those live updating, hey, this org, they're top as far as the resource gathering groups, and this org has the most bounty kills, and this org has the most crime stats earned. Getting
leaderboard,
those types of comparisons.
Yeah,
and maybe bringing it in to have some conflicts and competition within those groups.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. I think I'm a big fan of line go up gameplay. It's you give players a line to see or some sort of boast. They will do what they can to get that boast up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that encourage engagement. And if you have engagement, then you have people who are more motivated to log in and play. And that more motivation to log in and play means that they have more chances to play with their friends, which means they have more chances to have a good time, which then means that they'll want to log in more and be more active. Because I've got plenty of times when I've been I could play Star Citizen, or I could play Space Marine, I could play Star Citizen, or I could play BattleTech for the fourth time. And it's well, I can play BattleTech and log in and log out and not have to worry about it. It's going to take me 3 hours to get through a mission in Star Citizen. So that sort of incentive to be hey, come on and play because this is going to go on is always a good idea. I like that. Noob, short term, what do you think CIG should be focusing on to improve this situation?
Okay, so before we get into that, one of my ideas is maybe the why of the holdup, why it's being held up, is I know that they plan to do, the ability to have NPCs that you can hire and control.
Yeah.
So the permission system will need to incorporate that component of
non-player
it as well.
characters.
I hope they're not holding back on what we need now just because they need to theory craft what the robots are going to need, because it could be the same system and you can plan for it. So that was just kind of an aside that I had as far as that's concerned. Basically, we already have a decent way of getting together, party up and stuff like that. But now that we have the hangars, having an org hangar, a specific place where you can go hang out in the org, like a lounge, I think it was mentioned before already, is a great idea. I could keep a 4 SCU box there that has all my shit in it. And if Andy needs something like a gun, he can say, hey, can you give me the code for the box? And it opens, and you can just take whatever he wants from it. That becomes kind of a marketplace where you could abuse it, right? Like, but the game's going to have abuse anyways. And I really don't see how they're going to, like, all MMOs have, people have found a way. So
Yeah.
maybe a transaction limit, or maybe I just say, like $1,000 a day is what Andy can take out in equivalent kit. That was one of the ideas, but the commonplace, the org hangout is critical. I know people that'll just sit there waiting for someone to join and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" But unless you're in the game waiting or screwing around, you could be screwing around with your loadout or something like that in your spare time, but in game. Anyways, I'm going to go the opposite way with that. We also need the ability to plan in a browser, not necessarily offline, but out of game. So
I agree.
I could say like a org quick mission creator, or like Nubifier is going to go from point A to point B. So start place, end place, start time, what we're doing, what we need, who needs to be there, what type of people I'm looking for, and then you just go add turret gunner. That's where I would like to help you.
Yeah.
And I don't have to, like maybe there's an email that gets sent out, a reminder, hey, by the way, Bozo, you need to be in point A to point B in the next 30 minutes or whatever. But with that, also having the ability to prepare your cargo elevator, like I know that it's a big ask, right? We already have like the inventory GUI, and basically copy paste what you can see in that GUI into a web browser. So I know that productivity at work is going to go down because people are going to be shuffling kit around.
Guilty.
And it's not like, it's not going to take away from the people that want to move boxes. Okay.
Yeah.
But for people that simply, like the doctors and lawyers that have 2 hours to play, the game is not going to, it's not going to help. So you're going to spend 2 hours shuffling boxes and you're going to miss the game. It's not going to be fun. So possibly load the cargo elevator with what you want so that at least you can get there and do that, call up your ship, or even maybe being able to auto load what you want from the elevator into the ship so that you can arrive, and it's going to have a time sink and a money sink and all that stuff. That's one way to transact it. But again, it's about trying to minimize the absolute mundane minutia that a lot of people, and I'm not saying that, like, everyone who signed up for Star Citizen knows it's a simulator and knows its work, and we love it for that. But it's going to prevent
Friction.
some people
You
from
need-
being able to play.
We need to lower the friction of people of like,
Yes.
Yeah, and I want everyone to play because I don't want to have a server with 4 people on it, and 30,000 bots. That's stupid.
Yeah.
And to be clear, because chat is just like, well, we need all these other things for that. It's like, yeah, we're talking about, because the thing is that because I don't think I would kind of emphasize this. For those who don't know, this isn't going to be something that CIG can just pull out of their butt. They need to like plan, and they need to actually start putting resources into it. They need to write a document about it. They need to make sure everyone's on board. And that takes minimum 6 months, 6 to 9 months, if not a year, to do something like this.
Well, I can say they have a leg up though, because they laid the groundwork for it. They were very smart in creating Spectrum, because that is the tie-in between the game and the other functionality on the website. If they can add exactly what Noob was talking about, where you can set up a lot of this stuff ahead of time and take some of that management stuff out of the game, or make it easier to perform in a web browser, then the only thing that you need left is a mobile app that ties that together. But that is a subject for another story.
I don't even need that yet, though. I understand. I want it.
Yes.
I would love it, and we need it. But I
agree.
am being realist that it needs to work. Like,
I agree.
It works in game now. Just to get it out of the game into a web browser, like you can sit at your iOS computer, your IBM computer,
organize
your Windows computer, and do it. That would be it. I just totally dated myself, didn't I?
The only reason why the mobile app becomes handy is because, and I agree with you that a mobile app is something that they probably should think at least longer term. But like, once you go through all the effort that you just described, as far as being able to configure a mission or a plan of attack through the web, through a web browser interface, a mobile app would provide the ability to do push notifications.
Even just to be able to message from the game.
Yes. You need to be able to reach out into the real world and grab people when they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs, let them know that something's going on. And that's what a mobile app would do with the notification.
If I'm somewhere and I punch out, right, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, it should automatically trigger an alert. And you can subscribe or not subscribe to it. You could be like, I'm on call, I'm not on call.
Yeah.
Just like you do with
Yeah.
your phone.
Muted.
You go to sleep, you
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
sleep mode. But if I'm sitting there watching Grey's Anatomy or whatever, and Andy, you punch out of your reclaimer, I'm like, BRB, I'm gotta go.
Yes.
My buddy is stranded, right? And I
Yeah.
could say answer, and I'll be there in however many minutes. So again, being inside and outside of the game is horrible because it's going to ruin people's marriages and it's going to wreck people's lives, but it's actually necessary and it's a normal part of an MMO, right?
It's a good way to take advantage of modern infrastructure that wasn't necessarily around before, because you now have another tool to be able to foment that player engagement. To me, that part of reaching out and grabbing people who are not currently in the game, that's the biggest piece that I have yet to see other MMOs really take advantage of. And understandably, they're very focused on developing the technology, the graphics engines, the latest cool ships and all that. But for a long-term success of a game like this, you need those tools to be able to make sure that you foster that player engagement long-term.
And
Go
to
ahead,
that point, as far as like punching out when there's something important, one of the things my org does, because we've been primarily a mining org, and this it slowed down in the last year or so, and I think really since like 3.18. But when people would go out and they'd be mining and they found a rock they couldn't break on their own, we've got a role in a channel people can go mention, and it'll ping you through Discord. But like that's a separate system. But then you could bring somebody in to come help you break that rock, or maybe you were just out in doing a joyride and you found something that looked like it was going to be valuable. So those type of things. I mean, it would be great to have it integrated within the game system itself, and allow people to not have to have those. That setup we did as like org leaders to make that happen. But if it's something within game, absolutely.
So this is something I would
everyone's
want to
experience.
say to you, Red Monster. Though you were mentioning that you guys are a mining guild, which is great. Typically, though, in a lot of the other MMOs, when you're out mining, you're gathering those resources for a purpose. And I can't help but wonder if understandably, the game's in development. We know that. So I don't mean to, overlook the obvious here. But if you get to a point where you now have a reason for mining that ore, you need the resource to build a player base, that kind of thing. That is what I mean by player generated content. And it gives somebody a longer term loop to want to stay engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's all profit right now. That's all we're going for, and there's no real purpose, which is why,
Cha-ching.
like, it's a huge shame, because there's other base building
No,
games.
cha-ching.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's money, money to shing. Yeah,
yeah, money. I thought you said
guys are gonna be the
it's a
Iron
shame.
Bank soon.
But no,
That too.
that's why base building has been, kind of so such an alluring aspect of the next 12 months of development or whatever. That if we finally have a reason to go mine all of that iron, like it's going to be a resource I actually might pay attention to, rather than just like okay, it's taking up extra space and might cover gas.
Yeah.
I'll jump in and say I think one of the big things that CAG needs to do is there's twofold. Number one is they need to have a meaningful way of transporting your character to another location without being in the game. I don't care if it's like an app where you can just say, move my character and my stuff from point A to point B while I'm at work and I'm doing other things.
I've got it, Paul, on the list.
Yeah.
Or Uber.
Yeah.
Literally an app just like Uber. You say, I am here and I need to go there. And how much is it going to cost? And one of your org mates comes, picks up your tune, AI. It doesn't even have to be you. Transports you somewhere. And then you're like, well, what happens if the person gets nuked on the way and all that other stuff? Well, I guess the guy's got a shitty rating if he blows you up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I mean, you can, like, that still requires like some sort of gameplay edition where like you.
Oh my God. There's so much.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much back end just for that stupid idea.
But I mean, the idea of just having the ability to just move your character from point A to point B as the systems get bigger, as some sort of public transportation that you can access when you're not in the game, so that it will take you time and it'll cost you money. And when you come back into the game, you might have a screen that says, maybe you take the public transportation and you come back in the game, you get off work early, and you're like, oh great, I can go play, and you forgot that you moved your characters. It's like you're going to be moving the character for another 2 hours.
Yeah,
It's just like
simple quality of life. You're preaching to the choir, man. This is the stuff.
But that sort of thing would help out tremendously because it allows for players to plan, but also to coordinate with friends. And it's something that's going to be a problem down the line because you want to play with your buddy who just got the game and you're off in Nix because you're, elbows deep in a smuggling run trying to make some money. And you're like, okay, I'll just finish this up and go get my friend. And your friend is way back in Crusader, 2 jumps away. It's like, great. It's going to take me.
That's going to be a total buzzkill if they don't find a solution for that.
Yeah.
Imagine having to get off of work early to rush home, beat traffic because you know that there's an org meet at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And you got to move all your shit together for 4 hours. You know what I mean? Like this is not quality gameplay.
No. And I love Arma. Don't get me wrong. I fucks with some Arma gameplay. All right. When it comes to like big group gameplay and they get together and they have to have logistics and all that kind of stuff. But Arma has an operation that's run by a group and they usually have a goal. So it's like you show up and yeah, you might run around for like an hour while everything's getting set up. But once it gets going, it's going. Versus Star Citizen is going to be the kind of game where to gather people up is going to take days in some cases because of the distances that are going to have to be traveled and the stuff that has to be put together. And that's fun, especially for people like me who are stupid. But, like that's the like box moving gameplay is a gameplay the thing I enjoy. But like it also still needs to remove some friction from people who just want to play the game.
So, we're talking about kind of making the logistics side of the game easier, and we talk about it being a simulation. Now, CIG spent a lot of time removing our option to just like backspace all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And kind of making that be a respawn thing. But yeah, are we circumventing the gameplay they're trying to create for us by kind of outsourcing it to a web app? I
don't think so.
That's a legitimate thing though. Part of you want to make sure you don't create something that allows people to skip out of the game. You want to encourage player engagement. And so whatever you develop for a mechanic, you have to kind of balance that aspect of it. You don't want to have it so that they're running the entire game from an Excel spreadsheet offline as an extreme example.
That's an extreme example, but I don't know what people's opinions of the movie were, but like there's the Adam Sandler movie Click where he just like fast forwards to the part that he's bored with. Yeah. Right. And is that cheapening the experience a little bit? So
let me put this out because I think you were mentioning this earlier, Paul, the whole idea of agent smithing.
Yeah.
So this is a problem that's come up a lot in discussions. And since this is all player orgs, content that we're talking about here, when you have these big multiplayer ships, the idea of gathering all of your tunes together to be on that ship so you can all go somewhere on a mission, that sounds daunting. It's hard enough just trying to meet up in one place, but then to meet up in one place on a ship and then go somewhere, it sounds unbearable in the current state of the game with the current mechanics that we have. There's been, sort of 2 ideas proposed on how to tackle that. And again, this still is in vein of the player org stuff. One of them is to have each player have the ability to have multiple character slots. So I've got one character that I play and he's in my one-man ship somewhere in Stanton. But then I have another character slot who's on an Idris that's somewhere in Pyro. And whenever the org wants to play together, all we have to do is log in under that. The other aspect of that, people have suggested this idea of agent smithing. So that if I'm the owner of the Idris, I can have a bunch of NPCs that are on the ship and then make it so that if I want to have real players play with me, they can agent smith into one of the AI and temporarily take that position and play with me. There are arguments against either of those that some players have put forth, and I don't know, it'd be worth it to kind of talk about the pros and cons of that a little bit. But they're going to have to tackle that. That is a huge thing because friction into getting into a fun scenario of gameplay in a huge universe like Star Citizen is going to be a huge detriment. They have to figure out how to tackle that.
Right now, it's the 1 hour rule of Star Citizen. If you want to get in and do something as an org, you have about usually at least an hour of setup. And when we start adding multiple systems and 1,000-player servers where you're gonna have people that are just trolling you like that, I think that's gonna go exponentially higher.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, yeah, there's definitely some other things. Someone's saying like SimPod stuff you could do. Yeah, that makes sense. But I think one of the things, the argument I would make for agent smithing is, as long as you could make it, well, there's a similar situation with another game that I'll mention that CIG has taken heavily inspiration from, which is not an MMO, but it's its own sort of kind of. You can see why CIG's taken inspiration from it, which is Tarkov. Escape from Tarkov has a system which is basically a scav system where you can go in and be something that doesn't, you don't have to risk your gear. You can do other things. You can still get benefits from it, but you're not risking everything you've built up for. It's less of a problem, but you're kind of dealing with a randomization. You don't necessarily are going to get the best of the best stuff. And that sort of idea of having sort of a playing an NPC, as it were, could work well within the Star Citizen universe. Both, you can work lore-wise, or you can do it as a way of, as a means of getting hey, my friend is in Pyro. They have a shipment they need to make, and they need somebody who's an engineer and a gunner. I am stuck in Stanton, and it's going to take me too long to get there. But they're at a station where I can just spawn an NPC that I can take over. I don't get any reputation for it. I might even hurt my reputation for my friend if I do something stupid. I don't get any money for it, but I can help a friend and play with them while they're there for like a limited time of some cases.
You can do that with multiple characters anyways, though, Paul.
You could.
You can set your 10 different tunes all over the place in different beds everywhere. And like, if I really need to get into Pyro and I know it's going to take me 45 minutes to get you, then I'll just launch in Pyro. Like, Eagle Fire 1337, 8, 9, or 10. Just choose a different character.
Yeah, but I mean, those characters would still need to have maintenance and rep and all that kind of stuff, and that could also lead to like trolling.
But we'll give you an excuse to play 10 different characters to level them all up so that they're all useful.
I mean, surely there's got to be examples to draw from other MMOs that have multiple character slots.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some solutions to the problem. But I think the end goal should be always that make it easier for people to play with friends in a more immediate solution that won't give them an undue advantage that doesn't benefit them overall in a way that it would be if you just had friends who were physically next to each other.
Yeah, it's got to be fair.
Yeah, it's got to be fair, and it's got to be anything can be like milked, and like the thing that like newbie, what you just said, that's going to happen anyways. People are going to do that anyways. People are going to have 10 different accounts and place them all over the place and just do that because they can, and which is fine. I mean, CIG makes the money. they cash the checks. It's still like several $100s because that's $45 per package, and it'll be more down the line. But like, there needs to be a means to make it easier in the short term with Pyro coming out and 1,000 players. And I think that's the main thing I would be focusing on is making it either easier for people to transport themselves to a location or be able to drop in and drop out without a huge hit to like without a huge benefit for the person who's doing that. So,
sorry, just an aside of that. Other people were saying like, I want a multi-bot, have 2 different characters running at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then CIG took it away because you can only use one of your characters in your account. Like if you had 10 slots or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys are like, well, that's easy. We'll just make another completely different account. And again, there's really no way to control that other than IP banning, like I posted in chat. But then maybe Andy has his brother out and they're both in the same house. And now what? They're going to use easy anti-cheat to deduce that it's legit. It's not trackable. It's not something that they, you'd have to get CIG Jake in there like shadowing your screen to determine if you were like a real person or not, or some BS. It's not policeable, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, but it's definitely something that, like I said, needs to remove friction. Organization stuff I think is key. I think I actually agree with when you talk about org hangers, and I think the easy thing to
that would
balance.
be awesome.
I think the easy thing to balance for org hangers is, okay, we're going to set the org hanger at arc L1. It's there. Now, if you want to get stuff, we just have you have two options. You have your cargo deck, your cargo container, and the org's cargo elevator. And it's like, oh, yeah, we got a bunch of stuff in the org cargo elevator. So you just call up the org cargo elevator and then pull it out, you swap it out, and you put it back in and send it back down. And if you try to access the org cargo elevator while somebody else is trying to access the org cargo elevator, but if then whoever got it first gets there and it just says wait until such and such is finished, and then you wait for them to go and do it yourself.
This is even better. Sorry to cut you off, Paul, but
Yeah.
like the whole point of having org money is that the org would not be able to have an org hanger until they paid for it.
Mhm.
So the community would need to generate enough funds so that they could have it. And if they wanted to have one in Pyro and then one in Stanton, because it gives them more capability, then so be it. And it's not going to replace the personal hangers because you still want those, for your stuff. But I can actually see many people only operating out of an org hanger if it was large enough, if it had enough platforms, etc.
Yeah. But I agree. I think like guild halls are a thing, and guild halls are great. And I think building bases could be a thing, but not everyone's going to have the desire to build and maintain a base.
Thing I want to do.
Well, and that's a good segue, because I think we're talking about what those features are going to look like for an org base. Those base building features that we're talking about. A shared hangar like that. I think it's a fantastic idea, but somebody does bring up, would that scale with 1,000 players in an org, right? How many people would be accessing it at the same time? And does it need to be a shared space, or could it just be everyone at this location has access to it through their own hangar? But yeah,
but that's
super messy for sure. Like we're just shooting out stupid ideas that are causing more problems than the suggestion is worth, right? But it's the whole point.
The idea is more. There needs to be more focus on making it like removing. I keep saying this word, but removing the friction of players being able to get towards one another, and whether that be organizations or party mechanics, there needs to be less. It needs to be less of a chore, at least to just play with one another. Maybe not necessarily earn money with one another, but there definitely needs to be some elements there to make it. I think someone mentioned WoW had summons, and there's definitely other things out there that you could use to quickly bring someone to you in a way that wouldn't break the game, but would still allow for that sort of gameplay stuff. So
the good news is I think CIG knows about reducing that friction part, because they've already identified that the whole HAB respawn loop is a detriment to people getting on quickly.
Yeah. And they're also doing things like they want to make sure you preserve your position when you log out. With 4.0 and beyond, they want to be able so that when you log out of the game and you come back, you're exactly where you left off, rather than being jumping back to wherever you were last time. But yeah, I think we had a good discussion about this. We're going to move on to the question and answer session. Thank you to Noobifier and Red Monster and Radar Ranger for showing up and hanging out in the discussion. We'll be right back with the question and answer session. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, thank you for watching. You'll find the full VOD in the comments below. Well, it'll be both of the VODs because we had a weird disconnect in the middle. But I also have the Q&A section uploaded separately, and it'll be down below. And of course, when I do release it, it'll be above Noobifier's head. You can click that link, and that will be that link will take you. That'll be up there after I've released that Q&A section, because the way YouTube works, it doesn't like it when you jump a bunch of videos out. So I'll probably be a couple of days. Usually I release it on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and I release this episode on Sunday or Monday. So it's usually out. No, is it Monday or Sunday? Sunday usually. Yeah, I usually release it on Sunday. So usually the 24 hours after the main episode, after the live stream, it goes up the main episode, and then a couple of days after that, I drop the Q&A. So make sure you check those out. If you enjoyed this, make sure you check out Noobifier's YouTube channel. Check out my Radar app, and of course, check out Red Monster SC on Twitch and YouTube, or just Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch and YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks for watching. And oh yeah, you can join us live at twitch.tv/theastropub, youtube.com/theastropubLive. Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Would love to have you come on and join the chat and join the discussions yourselves. But till then, like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. We'll be right back, chat. We're gonna use the restroom and do the things. We're back with a question and answer session with the Nubifier, Red Monster, and Radar Ranger. If you didn't check out the earlier episode, you go ahead and look at the link. It will be above Nubifier's head. That link will be there for the user who are watching this after the fact. For you to watch this before this, you don't have to, but it might give you some context because we might say some stuff here that'll say, like, oh yeah, we already talked about that, and move on. But this is just question answers where we answer questions from the chat live, which I'd love to have you join us live at twitch.tv/theastropub, youtube.com/theastropubLive on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific to come ask your questions live here as well. All right, let's move on to the first question. We've got 9 questions so far. First question is from Gin and Tonic, who asks, how would you structure communal org assets, monies, ships, bases, etc., to minimize the danger of org leadership walking away from them with them? Go for it.
Crowdfunding. If you put it in the box, it's not yours anymore, and you have assumed that it's gone. That's the only way to get rid of drama.
No. I think they have simple permissions. If somebody actually leaves, so you Eve, this is part of the gameplay. Being able to connive people and sneak and take stuff. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's unfortunately something that could happen. The other thing you could do is if they actually literally stop playing, the original person who purchased the ship gets some way to call it back.
We're not talking about ships though.
Oh,
it said money, ships, bases, etc.
Okay, so different commodities. A ship belongs to you. You pull it out. You leave the org. It goes with you. That's easy. If a person is currently in the ship while you are being banned, they are respawned at the nearest nothing, and the ship is gone. So the ship is easy. That one stays. Where I was coming from would be like, if let's say I gave 1 million credits towards the thing so that the org could go buy a thing. That should just be considered a donation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to capitalize on that in the future if I stay in the org because of whatever, but I give it freely for the org. There's no way to account for all of it. That would be micro.
But what if you are the leader and you're doing a fundraiser so the org can purchase like an Idris, and then right when you reach the point where you have 1 million credits, you just take the credits and run?
Leader shouldn't be able to kick everyone from their org.
No, you could leave the org, technically speaking, but
the idea is
then they don't get the money because it stays there.
Yeah, but then how do we spend the money? Like, how do you
you could transfer it to your personal stash and then leave the org.
Yeah, that's the question. Is that it's that kind of thing?
How to keep them from doing that?
Yes.
I mean,
what do you do when those things pop up? How do you keep it to be fair?
Yeah, I think in the permissions chat I had previously, there's got to be limitations, like X% of the org bank cannot be withdrawn by people under a certain permission level. Other things, you're going to have your transactions and but yeah, to Nubifier's point, go ahead.
I was going to say, he also just do what CIG likes to do all the time, which is mimic real life. In real life, you can't, if you had like $1 million in a bank account, you can't pull out $1 million out of a bank. That will cause a bank to just freeze everything and be like, why are you doing this? So a minimum deposit or withdrawal limit, daily withdrawal limit for everybody.
Yeah.
So like X% of the guild bank can't, the org bank can't be withdrawn by certain users, and that percentage scales with your, however you want to set your org up. Yeah. But you are contributing inventories, you're contributing credits, those things, they're in the black hole, they're gone unless
it's just a video game.
Unless people decide to disband the org, at which point, then the assets are distributed, in some way. But that's,
or they're just gone.
Or they're just gone into the ether, like real life, like crypto. It just goes away.
There's two ways to do it. You can put some of those controls in place, or you can do like Eve does and make it part of the gameplay. And there have been, articles written about that where people have connived their way up to the top and then basically pilfered everything. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of it, and it would certainly suck if that happened to me. But and honestly, I don't know that I have an opinion of it because I've never played a game where that's actually been possible, and I've never been the victim of it. So I can imagine if somebody stole the shit from me, I'd probably be pretty pissed. But you have to wonder what it's like. How did they screw up so badly to let this guy get into a position of leadership and then take stuff?
Then
Yeah.
don't ever donate any money to the org then if you're worried about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
an effing video game. And I know people take things too seriously, but people have to remember it is a video game. So if I give the org like 10 million credits and I lose it all and I get kicked out, well then guess what? I've got 10 million reasons to go play the game again.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm of the opinion, generally speaking, that like I am a chaos gremlin. I think chaos is a good thing in games because it makes more interests. It makes people want to, do things. Like someone's got to be the bad guy, and I don't mind being the bad guy. But at the same time, I think that chaos drives engagement. I was a big fan of the original Jumptown for that reason. Like I think people giving a reason for people to do things and bump into each other will make interesting things. Sometimes they'll bounce off each other because they're just fighting and fighting. Sometimes they'll come together and be like, hey, why are we fighting? We can work together and kill that guy. And then we can control this region a little bit more. That kind of thing. Emergent gameplay, as that's like to say.
Choose your leadership wisely.
Yeah. So.
He's muted.
Am I muted?
I'm sorry. Look at that. How stupid. Player alliances are what you're talking about. They have that in EVE, and it is a huge part of its success there because you may not be able to amass this 10,000 member org, but you've got a 100-person org and a couple of other 100-person orgs, and they all hate this big guy who's a pain in the ass and kind of bullying other orgs.
Mm-hmm.
Having that kind of functionality, that's part of the organizational tools that they should definitely keep in mind. Player org alliances.
Yeah. But I think the simple answer is just the leaders can do with what they want, and CIG can add different restrictions. And if the simple thing is just do what a corporation in real life have to go through in terms of procedures for these sorts of things. Because there's definitely corporations where the founder cuts and runs, does a rug pull, and just dips, and you could have something like that too. So. Who knows?
And don't bother making a support ticket for it because CIG doesn't care.
Yeah. And I think to a degree, CIG likes that sort of thing too, because that makes it more
Toya
interesting.
Took all my money.
Yeah. Okay. Get good. That sounds like a skill issue. All right. Next question comes from. Well, there's actually another good question that kind of came up earlier. Where I saw it earlier. Where was that? Where I saw it was under when someone resubscribed and had a question. I was like, oh, there it goes. Haraback, who asks, how mad do you think solo players will be about the engineering at first?
Okay, I've got an opinion on this. I don't think it's going to change anything because you can already play a big ship, and if somebody blows you up, you're dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll still play a big ship. If somebody, attacks you and you get your butt kicked, you're still going to be dead in the water. But now you might have a chance to run around and repair things if they decide to leave and not board your ship.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the same gameplay.
Yep.
You just now would have options for recovering potentially if you're not completely destroyed.
Radar, you ever play Battlefield?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've got two helicopters in the air and they're both shooting at each other.
Yeah.
And one has an engineer on board fixing, and the other one doesn't. One blows up, the other one doesn't.
Yeah,
and
but
that's really the
it's
gameplay. You can
it's already
choose
the
to
game.
go out there.
That's how the game works now.
Yep, exactly. This is what I'm saying is it already exists in gameplay and it's already good. So this is great. It literally risk reward, right?
Yeah.
You could have two dudes in two ships, or you could have two dudes in one ship, and the one ship will survive better because the other dude is able to go do dude stuff in the back.
Yeah.
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 I don't think the solo players will necessarily. I think someone's Jar's just saying, but we're talking about solo. But I think that the point that Radar and Noob are making is there's not going to be a change. It's not a change from how it functions right now. It's just going to benefit players who have
You'll be at a
multiple
disadvantage,
players.
though.
Yes,
I think is the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe that's
the way it's intended.
Yeah.
But and if you're a hardcore solo player, like you've made that choice, right?
Yes.
And if you're a solo player who's out there and you're struggling against some of those orgs, maybe that's the catalyst for you to go find a group that aligns with your interests. Try and get on board with them, and drives you into that group gameplay.
Yeah.
Or multi-box a second NPC in the back, and
Yeah.
fix your own GD ship.
Yeah.
There'll also be people. They'll be eventually have, and CIG seems to be really focusing right now on getting social AI and AI systems working, probably for squadron-based reasons. But I can't imagine that won't have a carryover for NPCs. It might still be a while before that happens, but you know,
Even R2D2
yeah, something.
running around with this spiky, you know,
Just sticking his probe inside unwanted
right?
computers.
Probulator.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Gin and Tonic, who asks, how would you incentivize orgs to use in-game systems rather than third-party systems like Discord? I can answer that very simple. Permissions. If it gives
Make
me
them
in-game
better.
benefits.
Yeah. My thing is you won't really.
Yeah.
Like people are always going to use Discord. But you know, the tools that I think really need to be in the game aren't necessarily the tools that are served by Discord. You need all the permission stuff that we've talked about, sharing of resources, things like that. Those aren't things that you can do with Discord. Discord, people are always going to use it for one reason or another. It's good. It's something that, you know, they've specialized in making, and CIG is not really ever going to expect to compete with it on a feature by feature level. They'll you know, even the in-game VoIP is good for talking to other people who aren't in your Discord, but it's not really probably the best thing to talk to your own org. People, you know, may very well do it, and it sounds cool, you know, when you're chatting with somebody like that. But you know, you'll always have things like Discord out there. It's the stuff that Discord can't do that you'll need the in-game tools for.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is Discord is a multi-game platform. It's not specific to any one thing. My own org, we've got people that are doing Helldivers and Project Zomboid, and there's, you know, kind of the flavor of the week that happens within that community of gamers who have, you know, just because we like each other's game style, you know, it's kind of the vibe that people come for. But the org tools within the game need to be able to serve, you know, the purposes that Discord can't fill necessarily. And if it's going to compete with Discord on certain features, it needs to do those in a better way, right? It needs to be a more reliable VoIP tied with, you know, in-game access. I think it's one of those things you have to do it better, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to provide the features that Discord can't.
Integration.
With that. Yeah.
It has to be integrated, so if I punch out, it automatically sends out a service beacon and messages people that are online. Those types of things are the thing that Discord will not be able to do without very crazy bots, you know, specialized bots. And then, even then, if the data stream isn't allowed to be leaving the game in any container other than Spectrum, then how would you do it? You'd have to get a bot that reads another bot. You know, it's just crazy. Most people wouldn't want to do that, especially if the system does what it's supposed to do. So just like you're saying, permissions and all the stuff together is the way. You'll still be using Discord for comms, but you'll also have this up on your iPad or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key is to make the org system integrated into the gameplay. That's it. Oh, and someone was asking, what do I mean by social AI? What I meant was that CIG is currently on a big focus on getting social AI done, which is like how AI react to different aspects, what they do, their patterns, their I call it the tag system, but I think they call it something different. The different personality systems they developed for AI. That system is being worked on, which means that if it's being worked on for Squadron, that those sorts of systems will eventually be ported over to Star Citizen, which will allow for things like being able to command an AI to do, you go fix thing. You are engineer, go fix when things are broken. You know, and you are gunner, shoot these things, that kind of thing. That sort of system, which will allow for solo players to use multi-crew ships a little bit better, but they're never going to be as efficient or as good as, you know, Bob, who you can throw a wrench at and be like, Bob, hit that thing. And he'll just be like, okay, I aim at thing and hit it, or I repair this, or, oh no, there's something wrong. I have to switch targets to this one because it's closer, you know, that kind of stuff. Bob will always beat the NPC 001 that's on your ship. So, yeah. All right, next question comes from Gin and Tonic, who asks, how does the panel feel about CIG establishing a paid surface for the moderation of art assets to be used in-game for things like org logos that could be applied to armor or ships or flags to fly from vehicles or over bases?
Love it.
So for those who don't know, the idea is that there needs to be some sort of moderation if you're going to allow for player created art and assets to be added into the game, because players will add in copyright material almost instantly.
What was it you told me about? Time to penis?
Yeah, time to penis. There's another one, TTP. They'll do some things which will not fly with terms of service, because they just will. So you can't just give them unfettered access to add things into the game, like art assets and stuff like that. But the idea that's been floated by the community multiple times is a CIG hires somebody whose sole job is to look at the art assets and to decide if it's good or not. And then when then if it's approved, you have to pay money to get it added into the game. But it might be something like you can pay some money and it's an org logo that you can then give to your org, and then they can add it to their clothing or to their ships as like a designator sort of thing.
Does it really need to be paid though? The person would be paid what, 80,000 a year?
Yeah, but I mean
$700 million.
I think it's a form of rate limiting it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's a cool idea. They already sell cosmetics. They sell paints.
Yeah.
Charge a little more to make it so that you can make your own. And it's not a pay to win feature. It can't be confused as a pay to win feature. So I think it's cool.
Yeah. You can also just make it that you're only allowed to do it once every 2 months or whatever. And then if you do make a gigantic set of cock and balls for the Saudi of Hull D, you just are never able to do it again.
You can. I think that the CIG would also probably want to have it so the system would at least pay for the person who's doing it.
Okay. As long as it's not like $50.
No, I could see it as a benefit. Something like that could be a benefit for like subscribers. So you get your subscriber, you can do that. You get a certain number a month for your subscriber with your subscriber pay. Like, you can do one
subscriber. Yeah.
Stuff,
so my problem is every single time something goes in that's paid, some game magazine somewhere blows it up and turns it into a shit show.
Yeah.
And I know that, as Star Citizens, we don't actually care what goes on outside of our little spheroid, but it does still become sensational stuff.
Yeah.
Star Citizens reached 800 million and there's nothing to show for it, which is bullshit. But this the next thing is people are now paying for cosmetics.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, it's out of context, but
I mean, we're already paying for cosmetics. It's just we have very, when is the hex code paint skin coming in, right?
Don't even get me started.
Yeah, like it's the customizable aspects that are missing, right? And that's a small fee I could be on board with, and obviously it's going to need to be moderated because you talk about Battlefield, I've seen plenty of very offensive clan tags in there that like the only gate there is once it's created if someone goes through and reports it after the fact.
All right.
Next, you get your money back.
Yeah. Next question comes from Steve the Dancer, who asks, what do you think of the engineering page in your Moby-Glass that has no controls, just a picture of the ship showing room temperatures, atmospheres, gravity, and component weapon health? I like it, but I also know, because Steve and I have already talked about this, I don't think it's something that CIG will do. Because it's just too much control for a player to have, too much information for a player to have. Because they want
to. It's a view only.
Yeah, is this a read only?
This would be a read only. It wouldn't just be a read only, but you'd be able to text the status of everything at a moment's
What
notice.
if it was only good if you were inside the ship at the time?
No, I mean that makes sense. But what I was saying is like I think it's a good idea, but I don't think CIG is going to do it because CIG wants the role of engineer, like a chief engineer who's like managing the damage control systems and stuff like that. They want that role to exist, and so they want to. If you had somebody who could just pull up a Moby-Glass and see exactly where the problem was, you wouldn't need somebody who's coordinating the like you go here, fix this, go here to fix that.
I think it would make sense to have there, and my work experience has been around very expensive, complex machinery, and we have these type of status views that are available as read only. You have to log in to be able to actually access or change anything, but having at a glance this view of, okay, this room, the temperature's way hot. Okay, that's probably on fire. I don't want to go there. Mm-hmm. That's like a basic safety measure. And I can support it being a read-only view that somebody who's like just an inexperienced player on the ship and says, oh, like that room's got something weird with it. Let's go take a look. And this is what kind of generates the interest for somebody to take on that chief engineering role.
What do you think there, Radar?
I kind of like it too. I mean, I don't see any immediate big blockers to it. Like not to contradict what you were saying, Paul, but I think you know, to your point, having somebody play the role of engineer, that person really kind of needs to be in control of stuff. The idea of having a view-only panel in your mobiGlas might still be handy enough for you to stay aware of what's going on with your ship, and still, work with whoever's sitting at the console to kind of direct them around. I mean, I get your point, but I wonder if there's a way to sort of tackle that. I think it's cool. I think it's a neat idea.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I don't see CIG doing it because I see CIG trying to limit the access to it. That's my point. Is like, good idea. I don't think CIG would go for it because they have very, very specific ideas on how things should work, and I don't think they would deviate from that too much. The Noob, do you think that it'd be a good idea to have a read-only mobiGlas?
So they've already spoken about it in all of the Squadron 42 stuff and all of the player sensors. They're trying to give you the ability to have awareness. Like the fog of war, how it just stops here. So even if you weren't tied into that ship, if you were just a stowaway, right, you should still be able to look and see what's behind the wall, adjacent. It's 1,000 years from the future. Like if there's fire there, you should be able to see it. So even if it's not for the purpose of helping the engineer or maintain your own thing, even within lore, it would make sense that a player should be able to see some amount of data.
All right, moving on to the next question, which is Gin and Tonic, who asks, should there be a limit to the number of people in a single org?
No.
It's going to be their problem in managing a 1 billion person org. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's all good.
I think the only limitation would be like technical limitation. I don't think there would be, but because it's just small amounts of data, but.
I just thought of something though. If they do org hangars, and then you have an org trading thing. Remember I was talking about how I can have a box of stuff in the thing and radar could come and grab. If you give people the ability to do that and you can have limitless amounts, then you're just going to have an org called Star Citizen Marketplace.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
it'll give
then you
people
have to
permission to go
you
to
have
the
to be a
place
member of
and
the org,
get the stuff.
right?
So it's weird how you say no or yes, but then, you know exactly what the developers are dealing with.
Yeah.
You got this causality, that this train of stuff that happens after. It's like, well, how are we going to deal with all that stuff? So anyways, I do appreciate the complexity.
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be some limitations, but I think beyond technical limitations, no.
Yeah. And the fact is, any limitation that they put in there are going to be people who game it, figure out a way around those limitations, and open it up.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely don't want to be part of a large org for those same reasons, or DDoS attack and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
It's easy.
When it's large enough to launch an in-game DDoS attack on a jump point or planet, you have problems. I mean, that's gameplay. If someone is just blocking a jump point, that's either go kill those people or send in the UE
Fire
Navy.
the Fruton torpedoes.
Yeah.
Blockade.
Aren't we already DDoSing ourselves? Like when with the PTU for the new hangars came out, so many people were spawning at these stations. They were all trying to get the departure queue at the same time, right? We essentially DDoSed the landing zones with what, like 50, 100 players?
Yeah. We could easily do that. Steve the Dancer asks, CIG has said that they are making a player trading system. Do you feel there should be tabs for inter-org trading? I'm going to be clear on this one. CIG has not said that they're making a trading system. What they said is they're updating the system that currently exists for giving credits back and forth so that it works on server meshing. That's there's been a lot of misinformation about that. They're saying, oh, this is a player trading system. And what they mean is it's MoTrader. It's MoTrader, but using the other stuff.
I thought I had heard somebody mention something about a marketplace.
Not from what I've been able to see, unless it was on like an SCL that I haven't seen. But on monthly reports, they say they keep calling it the player trading system, but it's always in reference to credits being moved. Yeah, because they said they're supporting two different currencies, or multiple currencies, and people are like, oh, multiple currencies, and it's like it's prison credits. it's the prison merits and
Agree.
credits.
I haven't seen anything on it, and I like as a guy who watches every single live and Inside Star Citizen, the ramifications are not what people are talking about. There's no, I haven't heard of anyone mention a marketplace like the conventional MMO marketplace
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. So, I think there should be one though. I think there should be a marketplace. Why not?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, so let's harp on that a little bit. If you guys remember Star Wars Galaxies,
Mhm.
they had the ability to have one of the player roles to be a merchant. So you could actually create like a little store and build stuff. I think something like that would be a really cool idea. And I think the reason why they may be thinking towards that is because of their references to crafting. They've talked about how people can craft certain weapons and certain items and make them better than standard. When that happens, you're likely, it seems like maybe I'm being presumptuous here, but the next logical step from that is to be able to get them to people, sell them or something along those lines. If you did have a player marketplace, but if you wanted to pick up the item you purchased, you had to travel to the destination of that merchant where his wares were housed. That's gameplay. That's immersive. It means, you know, it has some gameplay loops and mechanics to it. It encourages people to get in the game and play in the universe. So I if they did something like that, I would love it. It worked out really well in Star Wars Galaxies. I'd love to see it with a big successful MMO.
Yeah. I think the only thing that CIG would have to add at this point is just the ability to transfer legal ownership. Some sort of way that tells the game, this is mine, and now it is theirs. In some way, shape, or form, so that the game doesn't go, this stolen equipment, you know. What do you read? Do you think they should have a marketplace in game?
I sure as hell hope so, because otherwise my Benno Merchantman is worthless.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. That's
Wow.
literally.
Right.
Oops. You're
That's
right.
That's literally the gameplay for BMM and the Kraken
Yeah,
Privateer,
like,
right? So
I have an entire ship that's supposed to be dedicated to that. There was a beautiful ship, and I nicknamed it the Blue Balls Merchantman because we got to see previews of that. They edged us on for a year, and I understand why it was pinned, but that one did hurt at a very deep level. But they absolutely need to. You know, it should be something available. I should be able to go and select what commodities those kiosks are selling. And right, base building, you want to create a storefront, right? I need to be able to say, okay, I'm going to specialize in these particular types of like laser modules and have a shop that customizes those. You know, that's something I would want from a player-driven marketplace. And yeah, the Kraken Privateer also supposed to be kind of this mobile bazaar. It's something they should have planned for because they're selling ships on it right
Yep.
now.
Yeah. That's
Even
a
the
very valid
Caterpillar
point.
has
Mhm.
a storefront module planned.
yeah.
Hmm.
At some point they talked about it. Yeah. So someone mentions Voyager Direct DC at each major landing zone. The Voyager Direct is Star Citizen's version of Amazon. So at one point, CIG had in the UI, which was you could purchase something and have it shipped somewhere when you were buying stuff, which they've removed since then. But I still think that's something that they could do in the future, where it's like you can go onto a Voyager Direct site on Spectrum and purchase it and have it sent to your hab or hangar or your base somewhere, so you can, you know, buy something and have it shipped to you and just have to wait time for it or something like that. But all right, Trouble Magnetic asks, if you could pick the first 3 in-game org features, what would you choose? Noob, if you could pick first 3 things that an org could do, what would you have?
It's a big one. Obviously, we've already been harping on the org hangar, the space. But I think that would base building, and then those two together would be kind of interesting. The ability to assign permissions within the org is pretty important for me because we're about to see this whole who gets access to what. You know, maybe Radar is chief engineer level in the org, and he's any ship he goes onto, it automatically unlocks the functionality of that, even if he's not that ship's chief engineer, for example. You know, he's proficient with it. You've asked me for 3. Again, org marketplace trade, important. And then I know, well, that's only 3. So that's
Yes,
good.
sir. Red Monster, first three features.
Resource pool, that's credits, that's inventory, maybe ships. permissions with a scalable infrastructure. So you'll have divisions, ranks, roles that can all be assigned to each player, generating a level of trust, generating a level of specialization, generating a level of hierarchy. And then, yeah, I think, you know, I want to do base building, you know, and have that be tied to orgs. I know that's being developed kind of on the side, but maybe for a real hard third, leaderboards between orgs. Get some measurements, some metrics that orgs can use for bragging rights, right?
Radar. First three elements of org features.
These guys listed both the really good ones, or all of the really good ones. Red mentioned the org structure. Noob mentioned, I think it was you who mentioned the shared hangar. I wouldn't mind. So what sucks is just naming the three is really difficult. I want to see player orgs show up in a scan, which is nice and simple. CIG, just put that in there. I would love to see being able to declare war versus alliance with them, because being able to determine that on site is immediate content, immediate gameplay. Okay, there's somebody we've declared war against for whatever stupid reason. You know, I'm going to go blow this guy up. The other one really is permission structure, you know, because, and mind you, my three are not like the best, but I think they'd be really cool to add because I think they immediately add a twist to the game that's not there now. But the player permissions and the org structure is something that they're going to need to have in order to be able to, you know, grant the roles to ships, like Noob mentioned, because that's something that, you know, is going to be unavoidable here in the near term once, like, the Polaris comes out.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to be able to just, you know, make everybody in your party capable of pressing the self.
Like turret gunner. Everyone's qualified turret gunner or not qualified. Engineering panel level 1, 2, 3, you know, can access the 2IC seat. All this stuff is, you know, like what rooms you can go in and out of. It's all something. It's going to be a big pain in the ass, and it's probably going to be on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I really like that idea of the org versus org politics, because there are definitely some orgs out there.
Set of like rivals versus allies sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's orgs out there that I will definitely 100%, if we see somebody from that org, you know, we're not hanging around, or perhaps it's somebody we know need to go back up, right?
I would say the biggest ones are permissions, obviously, some sort of resource pool, and I would say a simplified list that you can pull the list like an org list in. You know how we have like the list that has our party, our friends, like the general like server we're in list, but a list that just says the org members, so you can know who's online in your org, so you can maybe like send them a message in game, be like, "Hey, I'm on. Do you want to go join on my shard and go here?" kind of thing. So
Yep. I dig it.
Just some way of having a contact list in game rather than having to go through Spectrum. All right. Trouble Magnet asks, one of the funding milestones was a mobile app. What would you want in that app for org gameplay once we have in-game org functionality? I think we already answered that question in the last one.
And we technically already had a mobile app launched, so CIG doesn't owe us one anymore.
Oh, what the authenticator
app?
The
authentication one, though.
That they abandoned?
Before that, there was a little tiny version of Spectrum that you could talk to people in, and it wasn't just going into Safari or whatever.
Oh.
But it was like 2015 junk.
Yeah.
I really want it. I when I did that, so when we did this little prototype demo thing back in 2017, that was a lot of fun, and it really got my creative juices going at the time. I would have loved to have developed something like that, because you know, it certainly was before its time, but I think now we're at that stage where thinking about having an app that's engaging, like not just a, you know, look at these fancy text messages or look at read the encyclopedia, something that allows you to interact with the game universe. That would be killer for a game like Star Citizen, because you need some sort of conduit to reach out to players while they are not logged into the game. And a mobile app is something that everybody has in their pocket. They're used to getting notifications. If you have an app that has a simple function that allows you to say, look, I'm my reclaimer and I've crashed on a planet and I'm being attacked by so and so org, send out a distress notification that sends a notification to everybody who's offline and gets them into game. That, obviously the timing on when you start development on something like that is up for debate, but something like that would be absolutely killer for making sure that you had the best way to bring people into the game and maximize player engagement.
Yeah.
That to me, like if they don't do that someday, they are dropping the ball.
They need a ping system is what it is.
Yeah.
They need. Yeah. I want to see the memes that people pull up whenever if you've ever been in a Discord where someone pings on accident or in a stupid way and everyone gets the notification and they just the chat fills up with with people making GIFs and other things being like, who pinged me? Who the hell pinged me?
Especially if it's 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, well, just like any app, though, you'd be able to set windows for do not
exactly
disturb and all that kind of stuff.
But I think that alone would be worth the the price of admission. But yeah, so taking what they have in Spectrum and making it in a mobile app that's connected to the game would be nice.
Spectrum's a no-brainer because it's all web-based and it's gonna work out of the box pretty much for with no little effort. There's one other thing that I really thought about years ago was the iPhone has that special funky laser face recognition stuff. You could make it so that when you do VoIP in game, and you message, if you're offline, I'm sitting on the toilet and I message somebody who's in the game, they see my in-game character getting VoIP.
Yeah.
So they see my in-game character with the face movements and everything else because
calling
of
the
app should detect if you're
And
in a
vice versa.
bathroom and not let you do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a very
dude. That's where I get most of my shit done. What are you talking about?
Literal, figurative.
Yeah. Are you
Love
pooping
it.
again, Paul? So, I think copying a lot of what the current Mobiglass app has, giving you, at least doing credit transfers, friend requests, those type of things, and also let me play a mobile version of Hyper Vanguard Force, right?
Here's something else though that is really handy with a mobile app, and this kind of addresses some of the stuff we had raised earlier. If you're offline and you want to generate a mission, say you've got a mine on a planet that's mining resources and it's filled up, you can create a mission in the main mission system that's either for your org or the general public to come in and pick up the ore and deliver it someplace.
Like a to-do list.
If you're offline, yet you can still generate content for people who are in the game playing.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
And save it so you can use it as a template for the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like objectives. I like
that. That
idea.
increases player engagement.
Yeah. Like the I don't know if that would be like something you do right away, but yeah, I like the idea that Darsh just put in chat, which is just copy the Mobiglass. I think Red Monster, you mentioned that. Just give me the Mobiglass, but in app form. So I can just go to each section, kind of thing. So, yeah. All right. Next question comes from Use Dead, who asks, CIG has previously talked about Orgs 2.0 and that Spectrum was supposed to be integrated. Do you think they scrapped org tools or want to avoid common designs other games use? I don't think either. I think just CIG is busy. And
they need the back end. They're tied in with the ideas, sound good on paper, but all of the supporting equipment is based on other supporting equipment that hasn't been made yet.
Yeah.
I think it's more fundamental than that. I think they just it's priorities. They got to get server meshing working. Working on a lot of these other features is going to have to come secondary and later on down the pipeline.
And that's definitely
Sorry, Red. I didn't mean to talk to you.
Red, are you talking?
No.
All right. I was going to say the other thing is just like right now, if you played the test version of server meshing they've done, one thing that's clear is that the hybrid service is slowing down connections, and adding more stuff to the hybrid service, like a org system, would cause it even to slow down even further. So it's just a matter of they have to get things, if not necessarily efficient, but they have to get things like working properly and making sure everything, adding a big system like the org system doesn't blow up the whole back end before they can do that in there. So, And it's probably a simple system, but a simple system is like the names on ships is a simple system that I'm sure they could implement right now if they wanted to, but it would take the 4 or 5 people to do it. And then if there's any kind of problems, they'd have to troubleshoot it. And then it's more than just a simple, can you add names on ships? Yeah. But do they look good? Do they look good in all lighting? Do they work with all the skins? How like, what's the scale size you want them on? How does they work with, there's a lot of other kind of fringe things that we don't necessarily think about that CIG has to think about. And there's probably some back end systems that we don't know about that they have to worry about that would interact with this system in the first place. So, Red Monster, do you think they've scrapped Orgs 2.0?
No, I just think it's lower on the priorities right now. I feel like they've got a really big push to get server meshing tech done. 4.0, Squadron 42, they have a lot of deadlines crunching in.
Mhm.
And I think they probably looked at their priority list and felt like right now the org system is good enough. And what's missing, the community is making up through their Discord servers and things like that. It's there's community support behind other tools, and we have those solutions that exist right now. So trying to prioritize things we need for those other critical deadlines.
I will add, though, that I think one of the reasons why we're doing this show in the first place was that I think CIG needs to start thinking about it in terms of the planning process. They need to get that process started. Because like I said at the beginning of the episode, which is it takes CIG 6 to 9 months minimum to get something like this done. They may have some jump start because they've already kind of laid the groundwork for some things. But CIG is not a race car. It is a ocean liner when it comes to movement. It takes a long time for them to just turn that ship if they need to change something. So talking about it now while they're getting these systems in place for the expanded system is important to keep that discussion going, only because it's like, hey, this is what you should focus on next, because I think it's going to start hitting you harder than you realize, CIG. If they may already have thought about this, but talking about it is always good to kind of keep that fresh in the minds of folks. So, all right. Didn't they mention they'll see org stuff at CitizenCon? I don't know if they did or not. They may have, but I'd love to. We talked about it earlier that they might do that. I'd love to see it at CitizenCon, though.
Let's hope that it's one of the panels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we need it.
Well, I mean, if they really succeed at getting servers with 1,000 people on, it's the next logical requirement.
Yeah.
You're going to have all these people organized on one server, and you need a way to have them interact with each other and relate to each other in some way or another.
Yeah, we're probably worrying about something that's already being taken care of.
Good. That made me happy.
I'd be good.
Right?
Jock Cop asks, what's the future of org versus org gameplay? As in, what's the main reason why we would fight? Resources?
Resources.
Yeah.
That's not even that question is so open.
Yeah.
It's
well, that's exactly it, though. If you look at any other game, especially Eve is a good example because they really have the org stuff down pat. Fighting over resources, fighting over base, fighting because you hate the way somebody looked at you. Yeah. That is likely going to be.
Why do we fight in real life? Pick any one of those things, and that's why you would do it in game.
Someone's bored. That's why they want to fight you. I don't know. You know.
Like a perfect example is if word gets out, say there's some planet and some spot on that planet that has this really high-end resource that's hard to get and rare, and you need it in order to build a base, like a mining. There you go. And word gets out, and so suddenly everybody starts converging on the place, and then you get a fight over it, a conflict. That is the stuff of real player-generated content. You know, as much as you may not want to get involved in that, that's basically how the world works, and that's how engaging gameplay kind of manifests. Is when you have those kind of limited resource scarcity, that kind of thing.
All right.
Good question, though.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we answered that thoroughly. Akuma Tensikuro asks, a solo fighter cannot be repaired in combat. A capital ship's advantage is the ability to repair in combat. Somewhere in the middle, a ship can be repaired by players in situ, but a single person or paired crew can just park the ship at a repair place and have others do the repair and maintenance for them. Question: where in the ship lineup should the threshold be for transitioning from ships where your crew can do its own maintenance to your crew must do its own maintenance, and what should therefore, and what should be the wherefore and why of this? Wherefore and why of this? The question is like, at what point is you move from you can do multi-crew to you have to do multi-crew? What's that cutoff for maintaining and boosting your ship?
Can I try this one?
Sure.
Okay. So I did armored crewman. I was a tank driver for 15 years, and your tank is on the battle position
Mhm.
and it gets slightly damaged. You lose something. You'll pull off of the main line and pull back, and you've got a echelon there. I think there's even a spaceship. It's not even
Crucible?
it's a refueler and repairer. It's
Oh.
not the Crucible, but it's
Vulcan?
the next one.
Vulcan?
And Vulcan, thank you. Does all the bullets and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That ship is supposed to be one bound back and, kind of like in the background fixing that stuff. So it doesn't directly answer the question. I know what you're talking about. Like the Gladius is really just out there and you can't get out and wrench on it yourself, but you can theoretically pull yourself away from the battle for a short period of time, link up, get repaired, rearmed, and then go back. That's how it's done in real life. So why can't we model that?
I think that's right. Go for it.
I was going to say, I'm kind of puzzled by the question because the ships themselves pick the answer for that.
Yeah.
If you're in a fighter, clearly you're the only one who can you can work on your own ship, or you can take it to a Vulcan or something like that and get it repaired. But you can get out of your ship and access the components in your one-man fighter
You still have
and
to
repair
leave.
them.
You still have to
Yeah.
go away.
Yeah.
So you're still not in combat is the point, I guess.
The larger ships have to. It's not like you'll probably be able to have a Vulcan come alongside and repair hull damage and things like that. That seems to be what they're implying. And then you still need an engineer to go in and do the work. So the answer to the question is it's kind of by definition, any kind of multi-crew ship that has more than one person in it can have multiple people taking care of it and repairing it.
Right.
If it has
an
an
F-14
interior.
still needs to go back to the aircraft carrier to get fixed.
Yeah.
A-10 still needs to go back to the runway to get fixed. So
Yeah.
it's quite realistic in that manner.
You can't repair a C1 Galaxy in flight, but you could probably do some quick maintenance on things if they're like your fuselage is broken. Throw a garbage bag or something over the hole. But yeah, and I think there are some planes you can actually do maintenance in flight for. I can't remember which ones, but I remember like World War II had some.
And it's good gameplay.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is multiplayer at its this is perfection for gameplay.
Sea of Thieves. I love Sea of Thieves, and that's basically what it is. You had somebody with the planks going down, planking it up, and bailing water. That was a role. So, what do you think, Red Monster?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the ships right now kind of dictate that by their own design. You've got the single seaters. Once it has an interior, maybe that's something that you can go and repair. If you are the type where you've got a pilot, co-pilot, full interior build out that only has the docking ports, that's maybe one where you can't go to one of those outposts necessarily and get repaired as quickly.
Banu Defender.
Yeah.
You could theoretically do that from inside. I know it's not technically a fighter, but it is.
Yeah, it's with the interior space, it's that should be something to allow you to do those types of repairs.
It's an advantage to taking that ship over another. And again, this is exactly what the point of the fleet of 1,000 ships is supposed to do. It's supposed to give you options, which is really cool. Again, it gets a little bit crazy, when you get like 1,000 ships, but there's enough granularity still in the fleet that it does give you that causality.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that's the advantage. And there's some ships with interiors that have their components on the outside, like the what is it called? The Herald. The Drake Herald doesn't have any interior components. You have to go outside to fix it, even though it's got interior space, because it removes the interior components for the operator of that, like your hacking terminal or whatever, your media terminal that you can use. So,
Paul, can you imagine being able to get out of that ship while it's in quantum and fix it? Awesome.
Keep that tether.
hold on tight. Don't leave.
Right? Don't drop the wrench.
All right. Kuma turns. Kuma had more to that question. The remainder of my question: in the transition from can to must do your own maintenance, where should and wherefore why the transition? I think we already got that. But I think we answered the question. Akuma, hopefully that we can answer this. I can repair my cuddy, but as part of the players on your own, it isn't a must. You don't have to repair your capital ships either, though.
Yeah.
You know,
It's also talking like some fighters won't even be able to regenerate fuel.
Yeah.
So like it's irrelevant anyways. Whether you're damaged or you're running out of fuel, you still need to go back to the Vulcan.
Yeah, like there's no point where you have to repair your own ship as long as you can get back to a location. You can also stop and work on stuff as well. Like there's no you must do maintenance on your own ship. It's always like
you can blow up if you want to.
Yeah, but you can do that with your own ship. Like you can be I guess it's more of an anime sort of trope, but like the guy who always works on his plane. Or whenever he's there, like, it's that sort of sci-fi sort of trope where it's the guy who's always like, I modify my own stuff. I'll make sure it's tuned up, ready to go all the time. So, but yeah, so I don't think there's ever a required maintenance. Maintenance is going to require for everything, but it just depends on where you are. You
just won't get anything done if you don't do it.
Yeah. You can work on your shit. You can choose to not repair your Idris and let it kind of fall apart. You're just going to explode faster.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next question comes from Kumi Tensukuro, who asks, "What sort of dance does everyone believe Steve the Dancer does?"
Samba.
Salsa. There we go.
What's that dance in Star Citizen?
I don't know. The
Stanton Shuffle.
The little finger point.
I'm betting he does the Elaine really well, though.
Yeah.
I didn't even watch that show, and I got that reference.
All right, we got the last question, which is from Unknown Guardian, who asks, "Ship sharing in orgs. How do you think it could work? Do I have to be online or not? Can I just check a box for org members to be able to spawn my ship? When does someone log out of when someone logs out of my ship while I'm offline, are they able to log back into my ship?" Those are some good questions. What do you think there, Red Monster?
Sorry, what was the question? I was harassing Steve in chat.
So the question is like, how are like org ship sharing and orgs going to work? Do you have to be out? Does the person have to be online who has the ship? Can you just check a box so an org member can spawn into the ship? When someone logs out in their ship, when they're offline, are they able to log back into that ship specifically?
Yeah, so I think what you have to do is earmark ships from your hangar to be accessible to the org, and just understand that it could be a crapshoot where that ship is at the next time you log in, right? Someone from the org could take it, go to a station, 3 systems away, and at that point, your choices are either number one, figure out who took it and whether they have anything they need to in there. Maybe you have to file an insurance claim. They get their items kind of dumped out of it, or I think you can't really duplicate there. You need to make sure that you're maintaining at least kind of the single ship inventory. But yeah, I would say once they take it, it's up to you to kind of go retrieve it, and maybe there's some barrier there to insurance claiming that might help prevent duplications.
So it's even easier than that, because if you have my cuddy, and I need a cuddy, I just go to Motor Pool and I grab your cuddy or someone else's cuddy. You know what I mean? It's like at that point, you're not worried about your ship anymore, because you've kind of just shoved it towards the org. If you leave the org, it disappears, right? Like it's still your ship. But no, it's pretty straightforward. I think you tick a box, say share this, and untick the box, unshare it.
Yeah.
And of course, if someone's in it, when you untick, it'll say this person's currently using the ship. The next time it logs off, their cargo goes back to their hangar. They go back to their hangar, and you get your ship back.
Yeah.
Unless they blow it up,
Or you set it as permissions, and the second you remove the permissions, they can't access the ship anymore. So they have to hack into the ship and get it to function if they want to. And it just
and you control your own org members, which is funny.
Yeah. I think it's just a matter of permissions, and like what you're saying, it's like if I've got 17 ships and I've got this ship that says I don't care about this ship anymore, anyone can use it. It's kind of like if you're a company and you have a car that's purchased by the company and used by the company, you trust the employees who have the access to the keys to be able to drive their car around. And if Steve decides to take the car and drive it into the side of a mountain, you can be like, Steve, why did you drive the company car in the side of the mountain? You're gonna have to deal with this now, Steve. But it's still the company car, so it's the company has to deal with that problem. So, what do you think?
I think it should work that way. It should work the way he described. You should be able to use it. They should be able to use it when you're not online. Having a good permission structure would allow that. And then just be smart about it. Don't give it to someone who you're not going to trust.
Don't give it to me. Yeah, I will fly it into another ship for fun.
That shit happens. You got to deal with that. I think that's just part of the gameplay.
Yeah, we already have that right now. Where like if you're in a party, somebody else can hop into your ship and then control your ship while you're there. So it's not too different from what it is now. So. All right, that was the last question from chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you to Noobifier and Red Monster and Radar for showing up. Make sure you check out Noobtube's YouTube, Noobifier's YouTube, and Red Monster's YouTube and their Twitch. And of course, check out My Radar, the My Radar app. I usually talk a lot about it when Andy comes on, but like I actually legitimately like have it as my main weather app, and it's really, really good for those of you who haven't chance, especially if you live in an area that has a lot of storms. Like I live in Texas, so I have, hurricanes are a thing, tornadoes are a thing. You often get the notifications of like rain is starting or stopping. The storm is this storm has been downgraded to a tropical storm rather than a hurricane. All those sorts of updates are really nice to help that, and it's often better than a lot of the stuff you get from like Google and other things like that. So check that out if you get a chance to, and it's free. So and people always ask, where can you get it? It's in the U.S., it's in Europe, it's in Canada, it's in like most of North America. They have their own satellite.
Japan, Australia, UK.
Yeah. So they have their own satellite and multiple satellites. So they have lots of different coverage. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining us. If you did enjoy this, hit that follow button if you're on Twitch. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that little bell icon to be notified when there's release. And of course, the like button will help with the algorithm to let other people who watch Star Citizen content know that the Star Citizen content is good. Comment down below if you're watching this after the fact of what's your thoughts on any of these questions. And of course, join us live on Saturdays starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive. We'd love to have you comment and ask your own questions to the cast we have at any given week. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. All right, chat. Let's find someone to raid. I like to raid somebody who is newer to the Star Citizen community or someone who is not as well followed. It's always good to send some love out to those folks. Let's see. They have a guy by the name of the Survival Bob. Let's see if he's good. So make sure he has okay. It's not in only mode. Let's go.
Trip is live. Trip is hilarious.
Ooh, Trip is live. I'm gonna do Trip. I like Trip.
Yeah, it's got 39.
Trip. Let's go to Trip. All right.
He's usually pretty stable.
He's an old school like streamer. He streamed Star Citizen for a long time, then stopped streaming Star Citizen, and then came back recently. So
the first time meeting him was actually when we were at SitCon in 2016, and he was like all cosplayed
full
out,
cosplay out, yeah.
A ship fighter, and the guy at the bar gave him so much crap for having a toy gun.
It's LA.